I'd like to call to order the City of Saugatuck City Council meeting for March 10th, 2025. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
With allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Jamie, will you call the roll?
Anderson,
Here.
Clark,
Here.
Dean,
Here.
Gardner,
Here.
Muncy, Peterson, Stanton. You have a quorum?
Thank you. Gregory is running a few minutes late, but will be here, and neither Lauren nor Chris are able to be here. So will someone make a motion to excuse their absence?
I will make a motion to excuse both Council Peterson and Stanton from tonight's meeting.
I'll second.
The voice vote, right?
Yes.
All in favor, you say yes?
Yes.
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 Any opposed? All right. That takes us to the mayor's comments. Well, Lisa, it's so nice to have you here because first up is being number 3 on USA Today's Best Small Town Arts Scene. We really appreciate all the work you and your team do to promote this area, including Douglas and Saugatuck Township. But it's great we continue to get such awesome press, and it really drives our economy, and we are grateful for you. So tell your team we love you. And then speaking of love, the varsity girls basketball team won district on Friday and have moved on to the regionals, and they are playing in Granville tonight. So we will be, yes, cheering them on. That's it for me.
Well, good evening, Mayor and Council, and we're all enjoying a little bit of warmth today, right? A little teaser for spring, and with that kind of warmth, as we're kind of coming out of these freeze thaw cycles here, and we're seeing some potholes popping up around town. So your Department of Public Works crews are on it. Scott asked me to kind of pass along that actually on Friday they kind of started patching what they can. For, to get us through for a little while until we can get some more hot asphalt and get some better patching and that sort of thing done. So they've begun that work, and are hitting those areas. So if you see certain areas where maybe they've missed or new ones that are popping up, sometimes, it looks fine one day and the next day we have an issue, please, pass those on, and we'll be happy to go out and address those. Just want to give you a quick update on budget season. The city's charter requires that staff submit their budget proposals to me by today, actually. So we met, or I met with the department heads and the treasurer, Brendan, in those meetings as well, and heard from each of our departments and their budget requests for next year. So the treasurer's starting the hard work of plugging all the numbers in to kind of give us an initial look at where we might be at for next year. And then we're going to go over several iterations of the budget and eventually present to you at your April 23rd workshop, which aligns with the charter requirement. So I just wanted to give you a quick update on where that was at. And then just briefly, I put a note in my report that Douglas is moving along with the Ferry Street project. It's pretty interesting to see some of the pictures and the condition of some of the infrastructure out there. But they're hard at work on that and still aiming to have that project wrapped up before Memorial Day is complete. So that's all I have here.
Great. Anybody have any agenda, excuse me, agenda changes? All right. That brings us to our guest speaker. Welcome, Ingrid. Ingrid Boyer is here from the Saugatuck Douglas Public Library. We're thrilled to have you. Thanks for making time for us.
Just barely fits on this much. Hopefully it won't come crashing down. Am I okay on sound?
Yep.
So first of all, thank you so much for inviting me. Bit about myself. My name's Ingrid Boyer. I've been the director of the Saugatuck Douglas District Library for 10 years. I celebrated my 10-year anniversary just a couple months ago. Prior to that, I was the children's librarian. My family and I live in Saugatuck Township. We've been in the area for about 18 years. Got 2 kids, both of whom have gone through or almost gone through Saugatuck Public Schools. I had a senior graduate last year and another senior graduating this year, so boom, boom. The Saugatuck Douglas District Library, I'm going to go to our vision and mission statement. Vision statement, that's what we hope people will say of us, and that is the library is an indispensable resource and valued leader, partner, and advocate for our community. Hopefully, we're reaching that goal. And our mission statement, a little bit longer. The library strives to be a welcoming place that supports lifelong learning, inspires the exploration of ideas and culture, and enriches the lives of all our users through diverse materials, programs, and services. The key phrase there that is easy for me to keep in mind is enriches the lives of all our users and your constituents. So what I want to do tonight is just quickly tell you all the exciting ways that we are enriching the lives of this community. Next slide. Just some general information in case you're not aware. The Saugatuck Douglas is a district library, which is a legal definition in the state of Michigan. We're an autonomous body, but we are governed by a board of trustees. Our service area includes the city of the Village of Douglas, the city of Saugatuck, Saugatuck Township. Our current service population is 5,686 as of 2020 census. The governance of the library, it's kind of similar to you. I'm the Ryan of the library. So I'm the employee, and the board is 6 trustees who are actually appointed, not elected, and they're appointed by all of you. There's 2 representatives from each municipality. The current trustees from Saugatuck are Larry Blose, who's been serving since 2017, and Sarah Nelson, who just started her term in 2023. Larry Blose was on the board prior to our election and our new building. He's done a lot of great work, so if you see him, thank him for his work as the Saugatuck rep. He's also ready to be done. So his term expires in September, so you will be tasked with appointing a new representative. So thank you in advance for that process. Next slide. The big story of the library for the last 10 years has been working towards our new building. And I don't know how much longer I can call it a new building. We're coming up on 5 years, but you've got a little before and after picture there. Our old building was about 5,400 square feet, about 49 that was actually usable. We had a leaky basement, no program room, a single toilet. Our shelves were filled to capacity, which means every time we bought a book, we threw one away. I mean, we withdrew a book, and lots and lots of stairs. Now I realized as I was writing this slide, I'm like, oh, of all the people to complain about stairs and old buildings, maybe, but you get it. Our population is a lot of older people and a lot of families with strollers, both of which don't go well with stairs. So we had a lot of accessibility issues. Then our new building, so we've got 9,100 square feet. That doesn't include, and that in addition to a covered patio, which is additional usable space during the warmer months. We have adequate restrooms. We have a staff workroom. We have a multi-purpose program room, which is for both library events and community use. We have a study room and a fireplace room for quiet work and study spaces. We have enough shelving space for our current collection and room to grow, and we have no stairs. Next slide. I want to talk about programs. The new feature of the library that I think has been the biggest game changer for us is that multi-purpose program room. It doesn't seem like a lot. It's basically an empty space with a counter, but it's about 600 square feet of space for tables and chairs. So we're making good use of that space. Last year, the library offered 400 programs. Literally, it was 400. I didn't round up that, with a total attendance of 7,100 people. But 187 of those programs were for kids and teens, some multi-generational stuff, with a total of attendance of around 4,700. 213 of those were adult programs and events with a total attendance of 2,270. Kids programs has stayed pretty much the same. Our library has always done a great job of serving families with kids. But in our old building, by comparison, we had, well, if you look at the last full year, we were in the old building pre-pandemic. We did about 68 programs. That jumped to 511. So when I say a 219% increase, that's a real number. We basically had no adult programmings because we didn't have a space. And now we have done over 500 in a single year. And similarly, the attendance has even increased even more, a 344% increase in attendance. So this library went from being a great children and family activity center with a room for adults to read and check out books to a real community center where there's stuff and places for everyone, regardless of age. Oh, and all of our programs are free. I started to put up a PowerPoint slide about all of our programs, but I decided I'm going to let our newsletter do the talking. I have copies of our newsletter over there, so hopefully you can pick them up and look at all the beautiful artwork layout. This is our first print newsletter that we've done in many years. I'm kind of proud of it. So some of the programs, which is a little small on the screen. So we have regular programs that are for groups or clubs. We've got multiple book discussion groups. We have a cookbook club. We have an open art studio time where people gather to paint, draw, create together. We have bridge, mahjong, a knitting circle. We also have a model railroad club that is open to everyone. You can see we've got those beautiful book images, but previously, our only program in the old library was a book discussion group, and now we have all of these other options. Next slide. We also have lots of special events. Hopefully you can take a look at our newsletter and see some of those. Some of the ones that are coming up, we've got a canning presentation, an environmental book discussion that we're partnering with the UCC in Douglas, an intro to jelly printing, which is an art program. We even do stuff like puzzle races so you can enter as a team and race to finish a jigsaw puzzle. Next slide. I didn't want to forget, one of our most popular programs that we have is our Sunday concert series. When we were looking at good ways to use our space, we looked around and thought, there's so many great cultural organizations in here. What are the gaps that we can fill? And when you look at a summer schedule in Saugatuck, you've got the SCA doing performances, you've got chamber music, you've got music in the park. Winter is a bit of a dead zone. So we thought, why don't we do a concert series in the winter? They're free concerts. This year we're doing 5 of them. Every concert we've done so far has been to capacity, so standing room only. We get wonderful feedback on this. People really love. It's a quick concert on a Sunday afternoon. Be with people, get some culture in and out, and for free. Next slide. I mentioned that we've always been great for kids. We continue to do a lot of stuff for kids. Little kids, we've got story time. We have after-school activities for older elementary age, like Lego and art programs. We do a sewing class. Older kids, trickier, but we are going to start doing a gaming program. We're turning our program room into a pop-up gaming space. So the Friends of the Library bought us a bunch of computers, a Nintendo Switch, some games, and I'm going to be in a room with a bunch of, and I will have to beat them all in Mario Kart so they respect me. But obviously lots of kids stuff too. Next slide. So that's the programming side of it. This is the stuff. So last year we circulated 94,148 items. Now that includes the stuff you would always imagine: traditional library materials, books, DVDs, magazines, audiobooks on CD, large print books. About 10 years ago, we started to see a big piece of our circulation. Actually, 10 years ago it was a blip. Now it's a big part of our circulation is our digital collections. E-books, e-audiobooks, e-magazines, which is the hidden gem of our digital collection. If you haven't checked out e-magazines, you can ask me about it later. We also have streaming music and streaming videos. And our newest venture is what we call Beyond Books. Some libraries call this a library of things. We've got all this stuff that we sit on. I got a beautiful 10 by 10 canopy. I use it about 4 times a year. Why not make that available to the public the other 361 days of the year? I need it. You want it. Let's check it out. So that's an example of some of the stuff that we are non-traditional items. We also, this actually started during the pandemic. We started circulating kits for kids because we couldn't do programs. So we said, here's a science kit, take it home, learn something. And obviously it's grown. Next slide. I often have conversations where I mention something and people are like, I didn't know the library did that. So I tried to come up with a list of some things that maybe you didn't know. Library has a seed library. You can pick up free seeds. We do one-on-one tech help once a month. We have something called Ancestry Library Edition, which is a genealogical database. We also have volunteers from the History Center who will do one-on-one family research help. We have a great language learning resource called Transparent Languages. It's what the State Department uses. It's like Duolingo on steroids. We have a free jigsaw puzzle exchange. There's a used bookstore that's run by the Friends of the Library. We have a notary public on staff, will be me, and even laminating. Oh, and that meeting room that I was raving about, that's also reservable for the public. So they can reserve the big space, which has capacity about 70 people, tight, or a small study room, which fits about 5. All right, so we did a strategic plan. It was approved in January of last year. Wrote this slide and I realized, oh my gosh, I got to do that again. Why did I do a 3-year plan? Why didn't we do a 5-year plan? So anyway, we did a survey, focus groups. These were the following goals: ensure stability and growth. That's kind of big picture stuff. We're looking at long-term financial planning, facilities management, staff resources. We are also looking to enhance community engagement. A lot of that's those programs that I listed. Also partnerships with other community organizations and expand access to resources. So we're acquiring new materials. We're also improving access by teaching people how to use it, doing a better job of marketing it, that sort of thing. Next slide. So upcoming projects, these are the things that we're doing a new website. Oh, it's been time for a long time. With all the technology and all the digital resources, the website is really important. So that's going to be a big project that we've already started looking at vendors and are probably going to be, hopefully have that done summer. We're also, with the few remaining dollars we have from our construction budget, we're looking at putting a second patio on the northeast corner of our building. So that's behind the building, on the private drive, kind of next to the pool of our condo neighbors. We get a lot of use of our patio, especially in the summer. And honestly, we just need an overflow space. People like to come there, work. We have Wi-Fi, it's quiet, and we're looking for better ways to use that green space. This seemed to be fit the strategic plan needs that were identified. I already mentioned that after-school pop-up gaming center. I want to just put one plug here. That was a gift from the Friends of the Library. If you're not familiar with the Friends Library, they are a booster organization. They raise a lot of money for us, and we wouldn't be half the library we are without their support. So if you know a friend, if you want to join, $20 a year membership. And then the last thing that I'm kind of excited about is this is probably a phase 2 after the patio, but we're looking at doing some kind of outdoor family play space. We might be able to incorporate, I don't know, some old tree stump into a climbing area or a place where kids could gather. We're talking to the Outdoor Discovery Center about that. In the summer, we have sometimes huge crowds of families. It gets loud. We would love to be able to say, keep playing at the library, but do it outside. Oh, bring a picnic lunch. You can eat it out there. So those are our upcoming projects. I'm excited about all of these. I'm excited about what's happening on a day-to-day basis. I have to say, I love my job. You have the best library in the state with the friendliest, most competent staff. Hopefully you can visit us and experience all of that yourself. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Questions? Russ?
Ingrid, you should be very proud of the organization that you built. And I remember that, and it was kind of funny now that we see this, that there was some controversy around this building and the expense associated with it. Well, why can't you make the old athletic center in Douglas work where you've been for years, right? Well, you point out the reason why it couldn't work. So it kind of boggles my mind when things like this are proposed and this is where we took it, right? And the programs are it, right? The programs are what make this successful. My entire family uses it. My father-in-law, who came up from Chicago with us, is a huge library user. And he was kind of skeptical at first, and now he's like, this is better than anything I could find at the Chicago Public Library. Programs, books. In my own personal experiences, there was a book that came out last fall, and it was a book I was excited to read. I didn't want to buy it. And I called the library, and they said, well, we don't have it yet. And I said, oh, okay. And she said, well, why don't we just buy it? I was like, okay. So they bought the book. Now, of course, that means that's going to get circulated to other folks, but the fact that it was just offered to buy without me even asking a question is phenomenal. And I just really appreciate the service. You do a great job and your staff is to be commended. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for those comments.
Anyone else? I agree with Russ. It's a great facility. And I was excited because I checked out a book, I guess, last weekend, and it had the old card in the front of it, which from like 1980 something. It was very exciting. So thank you for coming and sharing.
Thanks again for the invitation.
Appreciate
Thanks,
you.
Great
Ingrid.
working.
And thank you, Ryan, for setting that up.
Yeah.
All right, that takes us to public comment on agenda items only. Can be about anything, obviously, on the agenda. Anyone in the room like to make a public comment? Christine?
Hi, can you hear me? Christine Murphy Pierce, 449 Water Street, 121 Mary Street, Wicks Park, and the Cottage. I put in an application for a special events tent, and I can't afford the expense with the barriers that were offered to me, or however you want to say it. So I did send an email today to say maybe you can start putting out your outdoor patio on March 20th. And I'm not talking about the parking spots. I'm talking about just like underneath my awning and on my pavers on Mary Street. So I'm not going to do the tent. Can't afford it. Can't afford the barriers. Can't afford that. It won't make me that much money to do it. But if I could do 5 days earlier with my tables coming underneath the awning and on the pavers on Mary Street would be great. I was told that it's not a thing that's going to happen. It can't happen because of ordinances or whatever. So I think that's something that I think the council could be like, give her 4 more days and she can do it. It's not like I'm doing it a month and ahead. It's like literally 5 days. So it's a place for people to gather. There's literally going to be about 1,000+ people in town all weekend. And the weather looks very, very kind to us for all of our businesses to be able to gather someplace. So I'm just asking, not going to do the tent now, can't afford it, but I can do my tables underneath my awning and on the pavers, which I'm sure everyone knows about the pavers. We already went through all that. So I can put the tables over there and everyone can sit there. Families can sit there with the run in the morning and do that kind of thing. I don't know if it will work. I don't know if you will say no. I don't know however this goes. But at some point, there's got to be a little flexibility in 5 days of the ordinance being March 20th. I'm legally allowed to put them out. Now we're at March 14th, and I can't put them out. If it was snow or any of the bad things, of course I would not put them out. I'm a very common sense business owner. But it would be nice to have tables underneath the awning for people to sit, for the runners to be able to run, to do all the things. So I just don't know how many times I can do things and keep getting said no to, I guess is where I'm at. I mean, it's 4 days, and I was already told I shouldn't even ask for an extension to have my tables put out. So, because it's an ordinance and it's got to go in front of the ordinance thing, which I understand all the logistics of things, but the way St. Patrick's Day fell this year, it's March 15th. There's going to be thousands and thousands of people in town this weekend, especially with it being St. Patrick's Day. So I'm not going to do the tent because I can't afford to have $500 to the city to bring the barriers down on top of the tent price.
Great. I know that's on the agenda later, so we'll talk about it later in the meeting. Great, thanks,
Thank you,
Christine.
Christine.
Thanks, Christine.
Anyone else in the room? Anyone online wish to make a public comment? Doesn't look like it. All right. With that, we will close public comment and go to the consent agenda, which is on page 3. You have a motion for that?
Mayor, motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Well, second.
Questions, comments? Russ, I know you like the appointments. I'm
Thank
getting
you.
in front of this.
Thank you.
I think maybe once we've had them before a workshop, but we didn't, the meeting was, when was the meeting? It was after the workshop. So we didn't have the interview, so was not able to do that.
I appreciate respecting my continued request.
Yes.
So, thank
So,
you.
and I wanted to demonstrate that I had heard.
Thank you.
So, any questions, comments? Okay, this is a roll call vote. Yes.
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 All right. Takes us to staff reports, boards, commissions, and committees, beginning on page 26. City manager spoke earlier, so I'm assuming we're good there. Any questions on the treasurer's report? We have Nikki here if we do have questions. All right. Any questions for Jamie on the clerk's report? Planning and zoning. Any questions for Luke? All right. We don't have anyone from DPW here, but we have the report. Any questions for Ryan to take back to Scott? Nothing from police. John Moxie had a report for engineering. All right. Then let's move to boards, commissions, and committees. Dan Fox is here from the Fire District Administration Board. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you, thank you. This will be quick. There's only 3 slides. We only had a workshop meeting in the interim since your last meeting. Fire board's next meeting is the 17th. And St. Patrick's Day, you're all welcome. Fuck. Anyway, as you know, I periodically would bring one or more of the data reports we have in the fire district, and I thought it was purposeful to bring this one. I think a little over a year ago, I don't want to be pinned down on this, but together with the chief, the fire board became alarmed is too strong, but conscious that there were an awful lot of hours going community events, which all community events are not the same. The yellow and blue bars on there are the prior years, and the gray bars are 24 up through whatever it is, November. I don't have any more recent data than that at this point. But that, what I would consider, we would consider a positive change in terms of personnel utilization on higher priority events, came about with Greg Janik's leadership and with a real focus on getting back to events which offer a logical connection to the fire district's mission, which is kind of a broad mission, but it still leaves some things out. And that mission centers on community risk reduction within the community. So things that hopefully produce results that cause less of a emergency demand on the fire district. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, question on the event graph. That's for the entire district service area, right? That's.
That's correct. No, it's not, I mean, we could get it broken out. I'm sure somebody has it.
No, thank you.
No, that's the entire district. So the events that, I'll give you a good example, the one that was, I think, 4 or 5 weeks ago at the Douglas Elementary School, together with the Douglas Police, the fire district sponsored a sort of continued learning at the elementary school, aiming to get children to immediately know their address, which may not seem like a big deal, but if that kid's the only one who's awake and, you know, there's smoke detector going off or carbon monoxide thing going off, and they call 911, the first question is going to be, where are you? And that's obviously critically important question. So they, I don't know over what period of time, it's several weeks, they would go into the schools and talk about this, play games with kids, whatever. And at the end of that, whatever it was, 2 or 3 weeks ago, the district with Douglas Police sponsored a pizza day. That's that next slide, Jamie. Where the kids who passed the test and knew their address got a pizza lunch. So, and that is an event which, you know, you see there's on the right-hand side of that lower right picture, those are all fire service people there. So those are, you know, those are hours we're paying for, this community's paying for, district's paying for, whatever. But an investment in a very real community risk reduction, know your address. And those little kids, those are, you know, I don't know what early grades knew their address. So that's it for that. The only other thing Chief sent me this today. So in the event you hear of this was Pennsylvania, 70 Pennsylvania fire departments are each getting $1 million grant from the state. So certainly got the chief's attention. So I don't know. I haven't gotten far enough into it to figure out where the money came from, whether it's federal money and state money or whatever, but hopefully others pay attention. So questions? That's it. That's all I got for tonight.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it.
One other thing.
Yep.
It's kind of on a personal level, wanted to thank Scott, the intermittent flashing stoplight
Yeah.
at North Street is now way less intermittent. So, and you literally can see it from Holland Street.
Yeah.
You
it's
can't
great.
read it from Holland Street, but you can see it from Holland Street. That's terrific.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Dan. Gregory, Interurban Board.
Not much since I reported, so I'm going to be short too, since I reported at our last meeting. Our next meeting is next week. And just busy getting the building together and working with our increased numbers and increased hours. We started this Sunday. We're open till 7 p.m. now on Sundays. So we're starting to open up into our spring hours right now. Yep.
Thanks. Joe, anything from?
Nothing since last week.
Okay.
So we have a report for after our next board meeting.
Chris isn't here for Cal Lake Harbor Authority, but they do meet tomorrow. So, and it's the first time in quite some time that they've met, and Dave Ignasiak, our new representative, will be at that meeting, which is terrific. ZBA, nothing, I don't think, Ryan or Luke. Russ, anything from Historic District?
Yeah, we met last Thursday. We welcomed our new commission member, Leah Root. Excuse me. I think she's surprised how quickly the meeting went. So she thought she was going to be there for a while longer. It's just how efficient the group is. So we had 4 items on the agenda, one of which was pulled. That was for 611 Lake Street. They want to place a sauna in the rear of their building, but as it turns out, the sauna is not prohibited, but the lot coverage was an issue. So Luke was at the meeting and explained a little bit about what the issue was. And so they had pulled their application prior to the meeting. So we didn't consider that for review at the meeting. The other items that we did review, one was Sergeant Marina, the building down at the end of Butler Street to the east. It's their little, they have bathrooms there and they have a little picnic area. They're going to reside that. So we approved that. It's the first time it's been done since it was built. apparently is what it looks like. So a long time coming for that. 234 Butler Street, which is Glicks. They're going to re-roof their building. So they came for permission to do that. We also talked about the bike racks as well. And there was a couple of questions from the commission on not necessarily the placement, but the pads that they're building to put in and so they approved the locations, but there's quite a few questions. So I'm gonna probably follow up with Ryan if Luke hasn't already done so. There's just some more just kind of questions. And I think those may be questions other people may be having as they start to look at this. So and we had one administrative approval for 201 Butler Street to amend an existing sign. We're looking at a special meeting on the 13th. I don't know if that's still on, Luke. Is that still underway? To talk about the Cook Park Winter Art installation. So
Great. Thanks, Russ.
you're welcome.
Joe, planning?
Nothing new on, from planning, with the exception, of course, we'll be discussing the zoning text amendment, in new business.
Great, thank you. PPW, Lauren is not here, but she gave me some notes to share. They talked about, of course, now I need to find the notes, which I had, and close the email. They're moving forward with getting public and student input on naming the old airport property. We'll see soon from city staff a letter that will go out to the public asking for open submissions to send in ideas. And PPW will narrow the options and for council to review and decide upon. They also talked about what to do with the remains of the willow tree, discussed a lot of different ideas. Members will be reaching out to area artists who might have interest. One of the members showed photos of a beautiful carving that it's at the Herrick District Library in Holland that was done out of a tree trunk. Scott has heard from a local who is willing to cut some large branches into slabs for folks. So just generating some cool ideas there. And then Keith Cherrick talked about, and actually it was timely with Ingrid being here for the Friends of the Library. I know he's been very involved in that. There's some community interest in a Friends of the Parks, which would be a separate from the city 501c3 nonprofit, but would help to benefit our parks. So, and they're aware of coming up with some, maybe a community foundation or other opportunities for people to give money to the city for parks that we talked about at our strategic planning meeting. So that's it for PPW. Scott, I don't think there's anything new on the tri-community motorized trail, or is there?
No update.
Okay.
Nothing has changed since our previous meeting.
Okay, and Russ or Joe, Water System Operations Contract Advisory Committee?
Yeah, we met via Zoom a week ago
Friday,
Friday.
yeah.
A week ago Friday, had a good long hour conversation about some of the nuances of the agreement that's being redlined. So that's underway. Do we have any dates yet and when we might come back to see any responses to what we're proposing?
Not specific dates, and I'll be working to schedule another meeting with both of you very soon to discuss some other matters.
Great use
so-
of time. I love the talk. Yeah. we had a-
Yeah. So hopefully this week we
Good
can get back
conversation.
together. Yep. So.
Thanks, Ryan.
And then finally, back to you, Scott, for the Wildlife Management Committee.
Yeah, we made a lot of progress at our meeting last Wednesday. We're going to work on an FAQ to help folks understand where the tri-community is going with this. It will start with education, of course. Educating people on the need to not feed the deer because it is actually illegal in the state of Michigan to feed wildlife. So we discussed including that, some best practices that folks can consider in terms of planting deer-resistant plants, some recommendations and a number of education pieces along there. But also it will talk about the various merits of how you control deer. And based on everything that we've heard from the experts at DNR and from the feedback that we've had from the surveys, you will be getting the tri-community will be getting a recommendation from the task force to make hunting for deer legal with archery in the tri-community area. all that will involve will be a change to our ordinance to allow the discharge of archery equipment on private property in the city. Currently, discharging a firearm, discharging a bow and arrow is illegal in our city and also in the village, and I believe also in the township. So with a small ordinance change, really that's all the city has to do for people that live really anywhere in town to hunt on their property, on private property, or to coordinate with their neighbors, to say, if I shoot a deer, can I go get it if it lands on your property? Because they do move after they've been shot. So that will be the simple bit that the city will be a recommendation, which we will bring forward. We will also be likely recommending to kind of jumpstart this process, if you will, a cull, which will involve USDA sharpshooters that operate outside of hunting season. They operate at night to not disturb people and to be able to target the deer more efficiently. They use suppressed rifles, basically silenced rifles, and what is called frangible ammunition, which breaks up when it impacts the animal. So the likelihood of any sort of shot passing through a bullet passing through a deer and hitting anything else is eliminated. And these are professionals. Usually it's the USDA that does this. So there was strong support among the committee to start that this year. That would mean there will be a recommendation for an expenditure from all three communities. We don't have a number yet on how many deer we would hope to be able to take with a cull to start this off. Hopefully we'll get a handle on what we need to sort of get this going in the right direction based on the drone survey that we're going to do with the fire district. And so I can't give you a number, but there will probably be a request for all three communities to contribute some funds that are currently not planned for, I believe, to start that. It's once again, as the DNR folks have told us, the deer in our community are not acting normally. They've lost all fear of people. They are, unbalancing the habitat for not only themselves, but all the other wildlife and the fauna in the area. So it's not something that anybody on the committee took lightly. It's a very serious step. No one takes pleasure in killing these animals, but we did discuss, really leaning heavily into encouraging the locals to take part in hunting with archery equipment, and to, if they're not going to harvest the deer for their own refrigerators, that we would, donate the meat to one of the food banks in the area. I mean, perhaps Christian Neighbors or another entity. And so that's something that obviously would be done even with the cull. The animals would not be wasted. But you can expect to see that recommendation coming from the Tri-Community Committee. So I want you all to be aware of that. And it is a big step, and it's not popular with everybody. But if you look at our survey, the public did agree with the need for lethal means to bring their population under control. Did the deer's population under control by a significant number. So
Deal with safety for the archery.
archery, because of the nature of the equipment, it's very short range.
Okay.
Typically, as the DNR representative said, the greatest danger in archery hunting is to the hunter because they frequently fall out of trees and injure themselves. Archery hunters typically hunt from an elevated perch from trees. So they're shooting downward at the deer. Most archers, ethical archers, would not take a shot at an animal of more than 40 or 50 yards. Most archery equipment can't even reach out to 100 yards, although the technology for certain crossbows is improved where they actually market them to, be able to shoot 100 yards. But I have never heard of a hunter, taking that kind of chance, to not cleanly dispatch an animal. So, it's very short range, it's silent. And it's pretty much the consistent view of the committee that we need to kind of almost re-educate the animals to realize that, they are prey, and we're not here to, to domesticate them. They need to develop, more natural behavior of predator and prey. So we do believe that by opening up hunting, that or making hunting, an option by changing the ordinance around discharging archery equipment is the right way, because we can't do culls all the time, because then you're like doing the equivalent of invasive species treatment. You'll have just never-ending costs associated with this, because once again, the way the culling is done at night is very sort of quiet. It's much more kind of discreetly done. The animals will adjust, we believe, to feeling the pressure. I mean, I've seen it myself, during regular hunting season, when I go to the public lands over in the Allegan State Game Area, the deer are very skittish. I never see them until I get in my car, and then they run across the road in front of me. But I think we need to do this to stop them acting abnormally, and if we don't do this as in a unified way as a tri-community, if one community does it, it will simply push the problem into our neighbors' yards. So that's what you'll be hearing from the committee in due course.
Great, thanks. Any questions, Russ?
Yeah, thank you, Scott, or Councilmember Dean, for the report. So I have a lot of questions once the recommendation comes to council. There's a lot of nuances here I think need to be thought through in the committee. I'm assuming has been discussing those. Do we know when we'll see the recommendation in terms of in the detail regarding everything that you just explained?
As soon as it's ready, we've got the Douglas city manager. She's working on the FAQ, and I think since they've done this, they had a cull once before. I think they're going to take a crack at the recommendations. We'll meet one more time as a committee to make sure it's fit for purpose for all of us, and then we'll hopefully bring it forward fairly quickly. I mean, the objective is to have the ordinance change in place by hunting season, and the veterans and the youth hunt for archery, I believe, begins in the September timeline. Archery begins in general in October. So we would very much like to have the ordinance change in place by October and possibly call earlier.
So am I hearing this correctly, that basically with the ordinance change, we open up the city of Saugatuck to archery?
Yeah, yeah.
Any parcel.
Any private parcel, not public lands, but, basically in Michigan, unless your community or your township or your, wherever you live has an ordinance that says you can't discharge a bow and arrow, you can hunt
So-
anywhere.
So Talmadge Woods, Mildred Peterson,
Those are not private lands though, are they?
correct. So those would be off limits.
Correct.
Okay. So anyway, I look forward to seeing the proposal. I have a lot of questions about how this is going to play out. And I'm in support of taking care of the problem. I just curious to see the final plan. So looking forward to it.
Well, for example, to your point on the public lands, once again, for safety and liability reasons, if we do and get approval and budget for doing the sharpshooter cull, my expectation would be that would take place on city land, public land, public land, I should say, the city land, because obviously we wouldn't want the liability of a hunter having an accident on our land.
Right.
But the simple, elegant solution really is you simply change the ordinance to allow someone to discharge this, archery equipment on private property. They're completely governed by all the rules that are already in place in our state for hunting. And it's as simple as that. The season exists, the licensing exists. It's a fairly simple solution
Great.
for the long term.
Thanks, Scott.
Appreciate that update. Thanks.
Yeah. Let's move on to approval of accounts payable, page 43.
I'll make a motion to approve accounts payable in the amount of $60,648.89.
I'll second that.
Any questions before we vote? All right, so roll call vote.
Anderson,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
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 Lindsay.
Yes.
All right, no public hearings or unfinished business, so new business, item 14, beginning on page 50 with the bed and breakfast zoning text agreement. I know we've covered this during our workshop. Questions for Luke before we vote? Or anybody want a refresher? Yep, right?
Yeah, not a refresher, just I had an opportunity to have coffee with a planning commission member this Sunday or Saturday and kind kind of was aligned with the thought process here. And this dovetails quite nicely with the idea that I've always had, is that we should be encouraging people that are principal property owners that live here full-time, if they have an opportunity to rent a ADU or a place on their property for their benefit and for the community's benefit, to get more people here, all for it. And this does that.
Okay. Anything
And
else?
it's done
Oh,
thoughtfully.
Great.
No, I agree. I think this is exactly the direction from a policy standpoint we want to go. We maintain our small town charm. You know, we continue to encourage long-term residential folks to stay here, but provide them the opportunity to have guests at an ADU. And I think it makes perfect sense. I think it's exactly the way we want to go. So.
Okay. Any Gregory, Joe?
I'm full support of it. I was gonna
All right.
piggyback on what Scott and what Russ Gardner said. So I think it's a great thing. I think it adds a little bit of ease to the concern of the cap that was put in R1. And so I think it's a good solution.
Great.
Mhm.
Awesome.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Well, I'm biased. I'm on the planning commission, but the whole premise of, bringing, bringing more beds into, designated areas that are technically non-residential, I think is
Great.
right direction. We're heading in the right direction. So
Great, and appreciate all the work that planning. I know there's a lot of back and forth, and so thank you for being so thoughtful. Okay, roll call vote.
I have Madam
Oh,
Mayor, I'll
motion.
make a
I'm sorry.
motion
Thank you.
to approve ordinance number 250310-A, an ordinance to amend Title 15, Chapter 154 of the Code of City of Saugatuck to amend Section 154.005 to revise the definition of bed and breakfast establishment, to amend Section 154.002H7 to expand on the habitation options of accessory structures, to amend 154.022R to allow bed and breakfast establishments to host guests in accessory guest buildings in the R4 City Center Transitional Residential Zoning District if certain conditions are satisfied, to amend 154.025B4 to allow bed and breakfast establishments as permitted uses when guest rooms are in the principal building, and to amend section 154.025C to allow bed and breakfast establishments with accessory guest buildings as special land uses.
I'll second.
Nice job. You can see why I skipped right over that. Okay, it's a roll call vote. Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
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 Great.
We're going to ask me to repeat that.
So that takes us to budget amendments for fiscal year 24-25. Can someone make a motion? Page 56, where it starts.
I'll make the motion once I get to it. Just a moment. No one else seems to be jumping on it, so just a moment here. Oh,
Okay, yeah.
I'll do
I
that.
couldn't find it either.
okay. I will make a motion to approve resolution number 250310-A to amend the budget of the 24-25 General Appropriations Act.
Second.
Any discussion, questions, comments? Nikki's here if we need her. Okay, it's a roll call vote.
Anderson,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Dean.
Yes.
Gardner,
Yes.
Muncy.
Yes.
Great. Thank you, Nikki.
Thank you, Nikki.
Thanks, Luke.
Thank you.
Thanks, Luke.
Okay. Here we go. Temporary art installation at Cook Park, page 77. If somebody would like to make a motion.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the temporary flower world and installation at Cook Park from October 2025 to March 2026, contingent upon the Convention and Visitors Bureau submitting required insurance, receiving Historic District Commission approval, and receiving final layout approval from staff.
I'll second.
Okay. Lisa's here. We talked about this again at the workshop, but she's here if we have questions. Ryan's here if we have questions. Any questions? Okay.
Excited to see it.
It's a voice vote. So all in favor?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Anyone opposed? All right, passes. Thanks, Lisa, for the work on that.
Mhm.
Lisa.
Takes us to D, agreement to indemnify and provide insurance coverage for July 4th fireworks and donate $5,000 towards a display. Page 93, if somebody would like to make a motion.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve a $5,000 donation to the Saugatuck Douglas Area Convention and Visitors Bureau, CVB, for the July 5th fireworks displays and approve an agreement to indemnify and provide insurance coverage for the event.
Second.
Any discussion, questions, comments?
This is just the same as what we've done previously in terms of the indemnity and insurance part. It's all the same, isn't it?
The amounts are actually higher
Yeah.
this year than they were
Right.
last year. Yeah.
Did we do 4,000 last year?
The indemnification is the same, but the amounts.
Okay.
Oh,
Gotcha. No, that's fine.
Anybody else? My only comment here is I vote no on this because I'm not a big fan of fireworks from an environmental, animal, and people sensitive to noise. And after short-term rentals, it's the issue I've heard most about from people, surprisingly. So it's a roll call vote.
Anderson,
No.
Clark,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Gardner,
Yes.
Muncy.
Yes.
All right, that takes us to E, special event request from Wicks Park Bar and Grill on page 99. This has morphed a little bit based on the discussion or the comment from Christine. Ryan, do you want to tee this up?
Yeah, I certainly can, Mayor. So we talked at your workshop, about the event request and that the concrete blocks and that particular part of event services is not something that we've provided before, except for large events at Coughlin Park, where we've placed a couple blocks kind of at the end of the street there, so cars, we're reducing the risk of cars going into larger crowds there. Reached out to the event organizer and explained that obviously there was a mix of thoughts here, at least from the council. There was some that were fine with the Department of Public Works spending time on that and not requesting reimbursement for that cost. There were others that wanted to see reimbursement of those costs if we were going to allow it. I think others maybe were of the opinion that the Department of Public Works shouldn't be involved in providing concrete blocks, but if the event organizer can provide the necessary supplies that they would be okay with approving the event if the event organizer were able to get everything necessary to do so. So there's some sample motions before you that essentially would cover those particular options. I also included one option where if you wanted to approve the event and allow for the Department of Public Works to install the concrete barricades, that you could also reduce the costs or charge nothing at all. Ms. Murphy's, request as it relates to, placing the normal tables that she has out on Mary Street and the tables underneath the awning along the sidewalk. Very fair question to ask. I think it's, a reasonable ask that she's making considering the event she has. The issue that we have is that your zoning ordinance specifically states that outdoor dining can only, be in place to be used for outdoor dining from April 1st to November 1st. And so while the ordinance allows for setup of an outdoor dining area earlier, you can't occupy and use the dining even until April 1st. And so because it's in a zoning ordinance, you as a council can't grant variances. The planning commission can't grant variances. Only the zoning board of appeals would have the ability to say that ordinance can, or there could be a variance from that ordinance. Obviously, the council has the ability to change its ordinances and go, but there's obviously a process to doing that, right? Public hearings at the planning commission and then them making a recommendation to you, and that there's a process to those things. I will say that when we met with Ms. Murphy, it was either late January or late February to discuss this, one of the suggestions that I had for her was that she consider kind of setting up some overflow tents maybe in Wicks Park across the street, that there was a greater amount of space. It wouldn't involve the street closures. She had some concerns that folks might not be as willing to maybe walk across the street and kind of congregate in that area. And that wasn't something that she was willing to pursue. But that was something that an alternative that was offered. Obviously, at this point, we're kind of beyond even kind of considering probably that space with where we are. But some sample motions are before you, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
If I understood the public comment, though, you're withdrawing the idea of a
Yes.
tent altogether. Okay,
I came for it.
okay,
Is,
go ahead.
if I can ask, is that contingent on the fee for barricades, correct? Okay. I put some more thought into this since Wednesday.
It would be
And
much safer if I could just do the outdoor patio 4 days earlier, but not even the parking spots, but I know it's an ordinance and all that stuff, so.
Okay.
thanks.
that's the
Okay.
new-
Gregory?
that's the new.
And I put some thought into this. There are going to be a lot of people here in town for this event. I just feel that this microphone's really loud.
We need to give you the quiet mic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I really don't need it. I just feel like it would be better if we had some kind of policy in place about barricades before we start charging businesses for barricades as we get into this idea of doing this. I mean, because this is really something that we're not in the practice of doing. And so we have this one person that comes on and brings on this event and we're saying, okay, this is kind of the charges. And we did talk about them. I was kind of leaning that way. But after much thought about it, I don't know if she should be charged for this at all, or I'm still thinking that it wouldn't be fair to charge her for this unless we had a policy, something set up for events that everybody would have to follow. Because there's, part of our, the area in our mission is that we are a tourist town too. And, pardon? Oh, sorry. And we are a tourist town too, and we've done a lot of things to make this town a lot more residential friendly. Which I think we're doing great strides with those kinds of things. We've eliminated half the parking on the hill. We've our R1 district rentals. I just feel like we need to take our time when we're thinking about charging extra for these safety features. Because these are things that are bringing people to town, that are keeping the tourism going, the events that we do here in town. And if that means that maybe we need to increase staff at DPW. But I feel that people that live here full-time and do pay taxes understand the character of this town and that we do events. And I just don't want it to be the burden. And I don't think that it's fair that Christine be the first one to take on the burden before we really have a solid, plan of how we're going to do this. I see a lot of events like the Mount Baldhead Challenge and other events where they're not very well barricaded. We have volunteers, with their cars here and there, but I mean, it's as we go forward, what's our plan? And I think if it were up to me, I would say, let's let this happen. Let's let DPW, we'll cover the charge for this. But at our next workshop or upcoming workshop, let's have a discussion about what we should, if we should charge people and what that would look like for everyone.
Yeah, I wasn't here I had to leave the workshop early, so unfortunately I wasn't here for the conversation, but I agree with Councilmember Muncy that this struck me as being a bit arbitrary. And I think that the city does have an opportunity to, and Dan Fox kind of spoke to it from the Township Fire District standpoint too. At what point do you say, we provide a service to our citizens, to our business owners, to our visitors, but at what point does it go beyond what the city should provide? And then I know a lot of cities in the country have gone this route where they have a schedule of fees. So if you require this or that from the Department of Public Works or support, here's what you pay. And then you make a choice to decide what it is you want or what you can afford to do. And again, I'm not suggesting that we, have a full list of prices, but I think we have to be reflective of the fact that there's a cost involved. And there are probably maybe certain events, and this would be part of the conversation, where we would not do that. But for other types of events, there might be a fee schedule that we would charge to reflect the cost that it costs the city to provide the man hours, and the equipment and so forth and I think that's something that we can work through. I was fully prepared to waive the fee for this event. because it did seem a bit arbitrary to me. I think the key issue right now is Saturday is only what, 4 days away? And it doesn't seem like there's much relief here for Christine to do what she wants to do without violating our ordinance, or, and of course, the zoning board of appeals is not gonna be an option at all. We can't amend our ordinance. So as you stated earlier, what do we do at this point,
Mhm.
if anything?
Yeah, and I think the timing too. I don't know. And I'm gonna have to believe that Christine didn't see that coming, because again, all the events I've done over the years, we've never had to pay for this, for barricades. So,
Yeah.
yeah, and like I said, she just found out about this fee last week.
Well, it sounds like we're in agreement that our hands are tied regarding a change to the ordinance at this meeting. So it sounds like that's off the table, unless, I don't think I've heard anything from anybody else on council that indicates that we can just snap our fingers and change the ordinance. I was prepared to vote yes on this with the $480 paid back to the city, because we can't create a precedent where everybody says, well, if you gave it to one business, you have to give it to me. So I can't support creating a precedent where the taxpayers aren't recompensed for a business benefit, a direct business benefit. When it's things like Venetian, where it's a charitable organization, I feel somewhat differently, but when an individual business is going to benefit and make money off of having this space for people, if they were willing to pay the 480, I was prepared to go, and vote positively for it, but it sounds like it's off the table anyway. So I'm not sure exactly what we have to do here on this matter. And the applicants left.
Yeah, right, right.
So let's go, Joe's hasn't.
Well, I absolutely, I'm in violent agreement that we need to address the ordinance. It's a safety issue. In fact, it came up during our strategy session that that's one of the concerns, not just that, but for our tables and what have you that we have out on the streets. So I think we need to make it a priority as a council to get on that and get it discussed. But, in absence of that, I don't see an ordinance issue. I see we have our fire district making strong recommendations for safety purposes, and then we as a council have to say whether we agree with that or not. And if we agree with it, yeah, we'll change our ordinances. But in the meantime, if we're going to implement it in this one instance, in my opinion, and I kind of side a little bit with Council Dean here, is, it's a cost that needs to be burdened by the business that's trying to create or host a special event. And if the business case doesn't work, then it doesn't work. But I don't think going back to the taxpayers and saying, we're going to pay for this and then creating a precedent is probably in the best interest in the city. But I do agree we're remiss in looking at this ordinance and getting it addressed.
Yeah, I'm in line with what you just said. I think the first question is, are we going to follow? I mean, I don't think we have to require barricades. I think it's smart. So we could waive that as a requirement. So that's one thing. But if we decide that we're going to go with the fire district's recommendation, I guess I have two issues. One, do we really want to put DPW in the business of barricade installation and removal? And we might want to, but it would, I think, require added staff. And I've noted at the workshop, sort of the irony of hearing from a number of council members, let's not put more on DPW, and then we want to put them in the barricade business. So I think we have to be consistent about where we are on, DPW, just that. And I don't know that even if we do want them to do that, and I personally don't, but if we did, I don't think I want to do it for free. I mean, then where do we draw the line? What kind of event? Though.
It actually could put us in conflict with state law. We can expend funds for national holidays like the 4th of July, Memorial Day, Armistice Day, things like that. I'm not sure we can actually expend funds for holiday events. Although we do some stuff around Christmas, but I'm not sure we could. Well, in this case, if we were recompensed from the applicant, I suppose it's fine. But, you know, around this council, many times we've had discussions that we should be pulling back from the city
Events.
doing events and, you know, certainly create the playing field, you know, even get the barricades and have the equipment there. But once again, I think the taxpayers would have some questions if we were doing things that benefited individual businesses financially. And I mean, I take the applicant, she's left, but I take the applicant at her word that the $480 on top of the 250 for the tent is just too much for her to make her money back. I take her at her word at that, but I'm not sure what else we can do. You know, we can't change the ordinance, it's just, you know, with the snap of our fingers. So there's not much I can see that we can do tonight.
Okay, and
So-
then go ahead, Russ.
Yeah, I would just say that I want to make sure that my comments were understood. I am not saying that this type of service shouldn't be paid for. I'm just saying without a policy that directs what we should do. You know, I was willing to exempt this just because it seemed arbitrary, but that doesn't say I'm willing to just say yes to everything. City needs a policy around this because we have to respect our taxpayers and we have to respect that the fact that our DPW, this may not be what they should be in the business of. But let's have a policy discussion about that.
Totally agree.
100%.
I totally
Right.
agree.
That's
I
it.
guess, but absent that, I think if then we de facto make this then it's hard if we say yes, then to say no to other people, I think. So, I mean, that's, you know, one person's view.
But it sounds like it's off the table. So as I said earlier, where do you go with this?
There's nothing actionable here.
Yeah, and with, I think then the other question is whether we can't we can't let her ZBA would have to do a variance for her to do, and that's not gonna happen.
And this is just a discussion item, then we won't be voting on anything since you took it off the.
Right.
It's almost
Table,
like,
right.
I mean,
Okay, it's a moot point, I guess.
Or
Yeah.
do we table it? What is our?
I think the applicant went through her application here today, and I think you're fine to
Okay.
move on, so.
All right. Okay, updated 5-year capital improvement plan, page 114. Ryan, you wanna?
Yes, we discussed this, I think it was a couple work sessions ago where Mr. Moxie and Mr. Herbert presented a 5-year capital improvement plan, updated 5-year capital improvement plan. It's something that's kind of a working document that they work to update every year. It's a planning document that gives us an idea of what we should be, you know, planning for and budgeting for and what's on the horizon. Those priorities can shift with, you know, grant funds that come in and as dollars are identified or other projects, you know, come up as being more pressing. But something that we're required to have and we want to, you know, keep it as up to date as we can. And I think this gives you a good kind of roadmap of what's on the horizon as we have talked about having healthy fund balances, but a lot of capital needs that are calling for those dollars.
Is there a motion?
Yeah, I will make a motion to approve the updated 5-year capital improvement plan.
I'll second.
Any questions before we vote? Yes, Russ?
Yeah, just a question in our correspondence from the Haywers down on Newnham Street. I should know the answer to this question. Why in the world hasn't that street ever been paved? And
I know.
This kind of begs the question, right? It's been that way ever since I can remember, and I just don't know why that road has never hit the plan. Out of sight, out of mind, maybe. I honestly, I'm just asking an open-ended question. I just don't know why that hasn't. They raised a legitimate concern. And they're not the first ones to raise that question, so.
I was surprised, because I've never driven down that road. I never had a reason to
It can be pretty
until
nasty.
helping out at the flower shop and having to take flowers down there. And I'm like, oh, wow, this is like, you know, it's a little rough.
Gets
Yeah.
a lot of use for parking, so.
Yeah.
Just more of a general question is why that's has never.
Yeah, I'm not sure. And I know the history on it. I can say that I know in talking with Scott about, you know, the gravel road. It's something that, you know, obviously all of our roads right now are facing some potholes and some roughness. So the gravel roads also get attention as far as filling in those holes and kind of, you know, grading things out to the extent that they can. And then with the milling work that we did, mill and fill work that we did last year, we have a lot of millings actually at the Department of Public Works garage that Scott's indicated his plans to put that down actually on that particular street to so it'll be a better material, it'll hold up better, hopefully have less issues at least for a while. And then as you can see on your plan here, I think, obviously Lucy Street needs some work. That might be a natural time to kind of take a look at if you're doing some work in that area, maybe extending it and paving that at that time.
Yeah, and as I think it was pointed out by the letter, it's the only non-paved street downtown, but there are several unpaved streets in this town.
Yeah.
So, Interlaken is not paved. That's a street end over, Park Street. There's also Brook. Is that the name of the street up on the hill? Bridge Street.
Bridge.
There's also not, yeah. So anyway,
Yeah.
we still have some unpaved streets, so. But I would say this one is one that definitely needs to be put on the schedule and gets a lot of use.
Did we have a motion for this?
I did, yes.
Okay. Yeah, Joe, did you have a question?
Just for my own education. By the way, I really like the way this is laid out. It's almost got that project plan appearance that we even talked about during our strategy session. It shows us the flow of dollars by these major projects. So I want to, thank you and the staff for putting it together. In terms of, capital, there's things that may, I assume, get added to this and this will get revised. Just wanted to, because I see all the major projects here.
Yep.
But what I don't see is like replacement of equipment and things like that that are going to probably be flowing into your budget. So for my own benefit, does that get integrated into this into a kind of a second view down the road, or is that separate? And when we look at the budget that ties back to this for the projects, how's that going to work? Just curious.
So good question. As far as, yes, when you see your budget, you may see some additional requests on there for equipment and things like that, especially coming out of our motor pool. So you'll see some specific footnotes and requests and details on that. And then, Scott and I have had some conversations about, and I think you'd all discussed it at your strategic planning meeting, of having a more comprehensive capital improvement plan as well. That also kind of takes a look at our facilities and future, HVAC needs that we have and things that need to be replaced around City Hall and Department of Public Works, whether it's roofs or garage doors and things like that, and getting, some more details on that, put the paper so we have some longer term plans. And that includes additional equipment that the Department of Public Works has too, as far as vehicle rotations. I mean, these are things that, I think our previous treasurer kind of, had an idea of, okay, every so many years we replace these kinds of trucks, and he kind of just knew those things and was thinking about those things. But it's really a function of our, our department heads to be thinking about the various needs that they have and be thinking ahead and planning for it too. So we're working on that at a staff level. And I think next year, hopefully when we come back with an updated, capital improvement plan for these types of items, we'll have a more comprehensive plan that will include the items that you're looking for.
And just to be clear, I'm not looking for granular,
Yep, I hear you. Yep.
we have to replace a window type of things, right?
Yep.
But,
Yep.
you're gonna have a break fix budget and then you're gonna have a vehicle, capital budget, blah, blah, blah. And the reason I ask that is, I really would like to see, once you have that down and you have the budget for next year, we'll be able to look at how that impacts our fund balance, because you can just do the math here and see that.
Yeah.
This is just these alone are taking a pretty big swing at our fund balances over the next 5 years. And
Yeah, we wouldn't, we would have a hard time funding all of this just with simple reserves. So some of this was going to be dependent on, grant funding opportunities or us looking at other ways to fund these things, whether it be, debt service, whatever the council's, comfort levels with those types of things. But yeah, you're spot on. So when we get to your budget presentation, we're going to show you a line by line detail, and yep, you'll see, well, this is how much they plan on spending on repairs for vehicles, and this is how much they plan on spending in parks for
Okay,
contractual
great.
services and capital outlays and things like that. Yep.
okay, fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, just to add into that, I refer to it as an asset management plan is essentially what we're talking about, where all of the city's assets would be listed. Now, they could some flow over to a capital improvement project plan as well. The other thing I think would be important for the council, not tonight, but to have Nikki come and talk about what exactly the capital limits are, because there's certain thresholds that you normally assign to, this is a capital problem, this is a capital improvement project. No, it's not. It's a operational project. So that would be something I think we could all learn a little bit more about how we assign that from a, financial standpoint, because I'm sure there's standards that we're using. So it's just more of something I'd like to see us talk about.
Okay. Yeah, when we put your budget together, we can certainly provide some
Thank
detail on
you.
what things end up from an accounting perspective needing to be depreciated and things like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, this is a roll call vote. Yes.
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 All right, 14G milfoil treatment for 2025, page 116. Brian.
Yeah, so last year you had a pretty in-depth, I think a couple in-depth workshops where you kind of looked at the previous committee's work on the milfoil issue and their recommendations. And we talked about, the last several years of treatment where the Douglas and the city partnered with or hired aquatic doctors to treat milfoil. And so you had some questions last year about like, look, are we going to continue to see increased costs? Are we looking at maybe getting to a point where we can cut back? And how are we doing as far as effectiveness? And so they were here and answered all of those questions last year. And they're here on Zoom tonight, I'm sure waiting patiently. And so I appreciate their attendance here for any questions that you might have. But essentially, they've given us a proposal to treat milfoil again for this season. No price increase, same cost. With the hope that as we, kind of over the next couple of months, take a look at where water levels are at, we'll kind of get an idea of whether or not we're able to cut back or not. But this is kind of the last year, same thing, worst case scenario, with the hope that we can kind of head back in the other direction. And I provided some comments from them on kind of what they're evaluating as it relates to that. So presenting their proposal to handle this year's treatment. We budgeted funds in this fiscal year budget. So we have sufficient funds for the remainder of this fiscal year and would include the second half of the treatments in next year's budget if you want to move forward.
I'll make a motion. Motion to approve a 1-year agreement with aquatic doctors to treat milfoil in the areas presented in the not to exceed amount of $74,750.
There's a second? I'll second it. Can I second it?
Yeah, I don't believe you have any rules to the contrary here that I'm aware of that.
Jamie's,
Not that I know.
all right, discussion?
Discussion. Before I voted, I just wanted to be, and I apologize because I wasn't involved last year when this all came up, but I'd like to confirm that whatever the treatment that's being done isn't hazardous to aquatic life or waterfowl or any of the indigenous species that we have in around our harbor area.
Yeah,
It's a great question.
So Aquatic Doctors has to obtain permits from Eagle, Environment, Great Lakes and Energy to actually do these treatments. But probably a good question for, I think, Ryan, I think it's Ryan that's on, or his colleague that's on. If it's all right, Mayor, that we turn it over to them to kind of answer
Great.
more detail about the product and.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Jim.
absolutely. Thanks, Ryan. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you guys. Absolutely. Everything is 100% safe for the environment, for all the aquatic wildlife and every other species around. As Ryan alluded to earlier, the permit we get from the state of Michigan is approval for every product we use, the exact amounts and the exact locations. In other words, the state of Michigan is authorizing this treatment in total. Whether it's the products used or the locations, everything is approved and is deemed to be safe for the environment, both the aquatic river itself and all the wildlife that are in it and surrounding it.
What's the downside to not doing this?
Basically, what we're dealing with is an invasive species. So you basically would be looking at a river that would be somewhat ineffective if those species are the invasive milfoil is allowed to take over. It will basically fill up the bayou and it could potentially close up the river. You would definitely have boat traffic problem. You could have some water flow problems. Any number of issues could happen that would basically just clog up the river.
Does it choke out the existing plant life?
Yes, absolutely. That's the issue with the invasive. It's much more aggressive, and it takes over and pushes out the native plants in the area that have been there for decades and decades. So it's one of those things where we're really containing and controlling the invasives. We're not out there to eradicate habitats. We're not out there to eradicate any of the native plants that, like I said, for decades have been, functioning and working in there naturally. It's all basically search and destroy for the invasives that will contaminate and degrade the use of the river.
Thank you.
Other
Procedurally,
questions
you
for
would,
us?
I'll second, if you'd like, can second it.
As I'm doing quick Googles and maybe our attorney can weigh in, I think we might need somebody other than me to second that motion.
Trent's on tonight.
Trent?
Yeah, I'm not aware of a specific rule either. I could do a quick search. But I haven't seen that rule before, so I would agree with.
I think Joe has said.
Yeah,
he can second
I
it.
volunteered to second it, so.
Okay. I withdraw my second. Gregory, questions?
It's the same price as last year.
Yes,
And
sir.
as everything else seems to be going up these days, is that this, and I don't, unfortunately, I didn't have time to grab my device on my way in here. Is this the same? Are you working the same man hours, same treatment, same chemicals, just as much as we had last year?
Yeah, that's the plan. I mean, we certainly we're holding our prices firm. We plan on using the to be prepared to use the same amount of everything, man hours, materials, everything we expect to be similar. We are kind of waiting, as Ryan alleviated to, we are waiting to see, the water levels. Higher water levels, mean you don't have quite as nuisance with the weeds. So we might be able to do some smaller areas. And also we have been hitting it pretty hard, especially in the bayou area over the last few years, hitting it hard. And our expectations are that bayou area that needs treatment should be reduced over time. Essentially, we have to wait each season to see that seed bank, which are over the years of those plants being present, they drop seeds into the sediment. Each year, some of those seeds sprout and they grow the plants. We don't know how thick they are through there because that's kind of, Mother Nature deems how fast and how thick those are down there. But every year we treat, we kill the plants. Those same plants do not grow back. The plants that you see every year, they're new plants that had been seeds prior to that. So our hope is that over time, that bayou area will shrink and it will reduce the overall cost. But I certainly don't expect it to be any worse. So I would say last year's budget and last year's expenses would be worst case scenario. And if the water levels are up and some of those seed banks are starting to shrink, it is a reasonable expectation to hope that the budget might even be less, simply because less plants would be less area treated, which would be less expense for you guys.
Yeah,
Right.
Mayor, if I
Yeah.
may, I think it was important to be clear that, the $75,000 roughly is a ceiling. It's not
Right.
it's not guaranteed to cost us that much. But I think it is prudent to treat it the same, or to at least budget for the same situation as last year, even though we did make good progress on the invasive species the previous years. I'm particularly mindful of the extremely low water levels that we seem to have. And as it was noted earlier, this plant likes low water levels. And so if we do end up with a low water level, it's going to provide a opportunity for it to spring back. And so, we could end up, if we didn't approve this, being, penny wise, but pound foolish, because we'll have to come back with even more treatment to get back on track. So I'm a big advocate of staying the course on this. I'm hoping that Mother Nature helps us out with a rising water level. I hope the team at Aquatic Doctors, I think we've used them for 3 years now, or 4. I think Douglas has used them even longer than us. So 5 years.
Mhm.
They're familiar with this body of water. I think they've done a decent job. We had a couple hiccups with notification of folks like at the yacht club when spraying was going on. I think it was on the Douglas side, but it was near our yacht, the Saugatuck Club. So I think we've done a good job now making sure everybody knows to give the public ample notice, even though this stuff is approved for use. But I think the communication has gotten better. So I am in favor, hence making the motion that we budget for this, because otherwise we'll just be back to square one.
Okay.
And just to let you know, City of Douglas did authorize, they signed the contract, I believe, 2 weeks ago. So they're involved, and when you've got, the more area you treat, the better results. So since they're treating their side of the river and in their bayous, that's gonna be less fragmentation, that's gonna be less plants that could infect and invade your area, so.
Especially with them being downstream from.
Exactly, especially with you guys being downstream from them. So it definitely benefits you guys having them involved, and they are involved this, for the 25 season.
Agree then, Russ.
Thank you. I'm certainly not questioning the importance. I remember you guys being here, and I remember you guys, when you talked to us, our last contract about this, you were here in person. And I remember you stressing the importance of keeping it, at this full strength. I believe you proposed this when you guys were here in person, that it should be, the same full strength. And I was just wondering if it was the same service for the same price. So I wasn't, don't want to be misunderstood or anything. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And Ryan, you answered the question about whether Douglas is participating. Thank you. So when you mentioned Bayou, it's the green area that's on the map that's on display if you're seeing it, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Again, thank you for coming to the meeting this evening. And I was at the presentation last year when your entire team was here. This is an unfortunate situation for us where we're going to be beholden to some expense every year. And to Joe's, Councilmember Clark's, you may recall that the city at one time was assessing property owners around Kalamazoo Lake for the cost of the treatment. The city has accepted now full responsibility for the payment. So in terms of management of that financial responsibility, I think we should definitely be looking at, and I noticed that they offer, extended contracts so we can lock in our price. Because if we're going to be paying for this for several years, we want to try to make this as responsible as we can. And it sounds like based on what we learned last year, Ryan, is that if you stay on it, the theory is that it's going to eventually go down if you keep treating it. But if you stop, then to the point that's being made by several other council members, the cost is going to go back up. So I think unfortunately, we're in a situation where you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, right? Pay me now or pay me later.
You need to look at it like a maintenance program now.
Right.
The idea
Yes,
is that
thank
we
you.
hit it hard to try and get as much out of there. Over time, it will be reduced. It's just a matter of math. You've got so many seeds out there now. Every year, you're going to have fewer and fewer seeds. And if we're aggressive with it and we can manage the plants before they drop seeds, then you're limiting seeds instead of allowing new seeds to be deposited. So it's just simply a matter of there always will be plants. The state of Michigan does not allow us to get that aggressive and use products that are going to be, getting back to the mayor's question, harmful to the environment. So, in one aspect, you are being environmentally friendly, but on the other aspect, it's not something you can eradicate. It's going to be a management program for the duration. Now, hopeful that management area gets smaller and smaller, and at some point we're just doing small little localized areas instead of large bayou areas. But that's going to be based on the water levels, weather, environmental conditions such as temperature, sunlight, hours. All these things are going to impact it from year to year. So we may get to a point where, okay, we've been doing this for a little while. We've got to a point where we are doing smaller areas. It looks great. Couple years back into it, we might find, okay, this is kind of an unusual year, but we're back into a bloom season kind of thing where it really took over and kind of we had to elevate a little bit just to get back to down. So my point being, it's going to fluctuate a little bit. I mean, it is based on weather and Mother Nature, so it's not something that you can say, all right, mathematically we're going down 5% each season. You're going to have some variance in there. But I assure you, there will be some seasons where that variance is lower and less than simply just going up or staying the same.
Great. We ready to vote? Okay, roll call.
Peterson?
Yes.
Clark?
Yes.
Fee?
Yes.
Yes.
Muncy?
Yes.
All right, so that takes us to the second public comment period. Lisa?
I just want to say thank you very much for supporting the art installation at Cook Park. That means a lot. I'm waiting on the Historic District Commission's approval as well as PPW. Fingers crossed, they're all going to say yes. And also thank you for the 5,000 toward the fireworks. I appreciate that as well. And what Mayor Anderson mentioned, please vote. Right now, we're number 6 out of 20. We can definitely move up. We've got 20 days and you can vote every day. So it'll be on my social media, it'll be on Saugatuck Douglas's social media page. Vote every day if you can. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks for your patience.
Anyone online wish to make a public comment? I don't see anybody. Do you, Jamie? All right. That takes us to correspondence. Russ referenced the letter from the Hayworths, and we are following up with them to let them know what the plans are for this year. Council comments, Russ.
No comment this evening. Thank you.
All right, Scott,
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
Gregory.
Yeah, not a whole lot, but of course, happy St. Patrick's Day weekend. And the town will be abuzz. I'm sure I'll see all of you out.
Joe.
I'd just like to point out that I was vastly criticized in our last meeting when during the council comments, I suggested spring was right around the corner.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank my council members for approving the text amendment to the zoning ordinance. I'm excited about the Cook Park artwork going in. And I just want to make a comment about the fireworks because I happen to deeply feel the same way you do. I voted to approve these fireworks because I think it's almost a civic responsibility for communities to put up fireworks. I deeply wish the state of Michigan would change their ordinance on fireworks and not allow public use of fireworks. Because I think if we can just center them all and do them all at once, 1 or 2 times a year and not allow the public to go crazy, we'd all be much better off. And so would our pets and our veterans of wars that have to deal with trauma. So for what it's worth, would love to see it get up to Michigan to revisit that law one day.
Well, nice way to tee up my build to that. I would be really jammed up if I felt like I was the vote that took us to no, because who wants to be the person who kills fireworks for the 4th of July? But it is problematic. So, great meeting. Thank you, everybody. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Yeah.
Yes.
Opposed? No.